Hi everybody, what's up? My name is Juan. I am just one reader and I am really excited because I'm here to review and recommend a wonderful novel that I just finished reading, and that is The Dragonfly Pool by Eva Ibbotson. This was written in 2008, and Eva Ibbotson was a very charming kind of writer. She primarily wrote children's fiction, which is her children's fiction is very fantastical, full of trolls and ogres and witches and fairies and magical creatures. And her style is very similar to J.K. Rowling and Roald Dahl. So in case you enjoy those authors, chances are you will greatly appreciate her writing as well. But then she also wrote some young adult novels which really feel like young adult classics to me. I had previously read one of those, which is The Star of Kazan, which is fabulous, and now I've read this one. So The Dragonfly Pool is a young adult novel, but to me it feels like a classic, like the young adult version of a classic. It is charming and colorful and nice and heartwarming and really exciting, and it's a wonderful book. I will go into more detail in just a second, but firstly, I would like to read the back synopsis to you because I think this is a very misleading synopsis. So, The Dragonfly Pool. Synopsis. Tally Hamilton does not want to be sent off to a stuffy boarding school all because of the stupid war. But Delderton Hall is not just any school. Eccentric, crazy, and inspiring, Delderton is the gateway to a wonderful adventure led by the mysterious Matteo, who speaks 5 languages and longs for his mountain home. There, in the troubled kingdom of Burgania, Tally will prove herself to be braver than she knew and discover a deep and lasting friendship by the Dragonfly Pool. So that's the synopsis of the book, but I think it's kind of misleading. I think it doesn't quite represent what the story really is. The story really is so much more than what the synopsis says. The synopsis really just focuses on the main character and her going to a boarding school because of the war. And sure, that's the basic premise. We have this girl who is living in London with his father and his aunts, and because of the war, World War II, she has to go to a boarding school, and adventures ensue. But that's just the premise. That's just the first 2 or 3 chapters, and this book is so much more. This book has a little bit of everything, and I think that's one of the aspects of it that I loved so very much. Okay, so now things that I love about this novel. First of all, this is a novel that has been crafted and has been written with so much care, and you can just feel that the author put a lot of herself and a lot of her heart into it, so it feels like a very treasured thing. It feels wonderful. It feels charming, and the writing itself is very charming and very colorful and just warm. And it's one of those books that while you read it, you can feel that someone, the author, really is telling the story into your ear and is whispering these adventures into your ear, and I love that. Also, one of the things that I said before is that it feels like a classic. The language is very beautiful. It's not tricky or complex or elaborate or anything like that, but it just feels crafted. There's a sense of craft. There's a melody to a music to the words that I really enjoyed, a very delicate language. This story is so big. It has so many different aspects and so many different plot lines. It would be very easy to just say that this is the story of a girl who comes into her own and finds herself and finds friends and discovers a new land, but that's really just a very small part of the puzzle. This is also a World War II novel, and it really conveys what the war must have felt like for children in particular. And yeah, so it's kind of a coming of age story, and it's also at the same time a war novel. It's full of political intrigue, social commentary, and criticism on many different topics. And that's also part of why I think this is young adult and not children's fiction, because I mean, a child could enjoy this story for sure, but a young adult, I think, would have the capacities and the knowledge and the critical thinking abilities necessary to really dissect and understand this novel for its themes and appreciate it for what it's trying to say beyond the page. For example, some of the themes that this book addresses or tries to criticize or tries to make you think about are parenting styles, family dynamics, what it means to be free, what it means to be trapped, all the different ramifications or conceptions of that. There's also a lot of talk of gender, which is really great, and democracy. A lot of political issues that I really enjoyed seeing in this type of fiction. Now, something else that I really adored was the characters. Now, sure, the main character is a girl who is pretty much just a good girl. She doesn't have like a feisty personality or a flawed personality. She's just a kind of very nice, lovely girl. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do prefer that my protagonists have something else to them, an edge to them. And I kept constantly comparing and contrasting this protagonist to Lyra from His Dark Materials, who is just a very kind of feisty, spunky girl, and I gravitate towards that type of protagonist a little bit more, but that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the protagonist in here. I think the characters in here are lovely, and they are a little bit cartoonish, but you know, this is this type of fiction, so I think I was able to forgive that and look past that and just enjoy it. Also, the settings in this book are beautiful. I mean, we have such a big variety, a wide variety of settings. We go from London in the war to a really interesting, quirky boarding school, and then we have this other country which is just exotic and exuberant, and it just feels elegant and lush and just wow, the settings. There's so much in here that will wow you visually. Now, that being said, I do have a couple of criticisms and issues that I had with the novel, but I was able to look past them and forgive them. One of them was that I thought this book would have been better had there been more dialogue. I think at some points it felt a little bit too descriptive, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I usually enjoy more dialogue than description because, particularly someone like her, like Eva Ibbotson, these writers really thrive when writing dialogue. The dialogue is so funny and clever and insightful and human, and it is through dialogue that the characters come to life, not by describing them. That's something that I love about J.K. Rowling, for example, is that she uses dialogue constantly, a lot of it, and it is through the magnificent dialogue that we get to know the characters and to really get into the story. Now, talking about the characters, I did feel like there were a little bit too many of them in this novel. And granted, this is 400 pages long, so it's a big novel for this genre, I mean. But there were just a little bit too many, and we were in page like 250, and there were some characters that were still being introduced, so I felt like there were just too many of them, and some of them were absolutely more relevant to the story than others. Others just kind of popped into some scene in some chapter and did something, and then we never saw them again. But again, I know that's an issue that I have, and it's something that I can forgive and look past in this type of novel, because everything else was so enjoyable that I am able to forgive that. So overall, I would highly recommend this book, particularly if you are a parent or a teacher or someone who is close to children and who has some power over what a child might read or what a young adult might read. I think this is just something that would appeal to a lot of teenagers and a lot of children from ages like 10 to 14, and it's gonna charm them. It's gonna make them have a good time because it is very fun and very enjoyable and very thrilling. It has a lot of mysteries and suspense, and there are plot twists and everything. It's a very wild ride, but at the same time, it is packed with interesting themes and explorations of topics that are very important to start thinking about at this age. So, yeah, I would absolutely recommend this, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. One of the best young adult books that I have ever read. So that was The Dragonfly Pool by Eva Ibbotson.